Chapter 2861. Charlie received the news feed while drinking. After a quick glance, even the writer of the news expressed deep disappointment. They said that Zhiyu gave up the opportunity to seek justice for herself and her mother. Of course, some netizens think that there must be a conspiracy in all this, and it must be Chengfeng who used some method to force her into submission. However, because Zhiyu herself did not speak clearly, similar remarks and other opinions are diverse, and no one has the upper hand. However, Charlie was very clear in his heart. Zhiyu is a very smart girl, and her personality is extraordinary. If she voluntarily gave up this opportunity, it was definitely not that she was afraid of her murderous grandfather. She must have borrowed this opportunity in exchange for other compensation from him. Issac, who was sitting next to Charlie, also received this news feed. With a look of surprise on his face, he handed the phone to Charlie and whispered, "Master, look at this." Charlie nodded. "I just saw it." Issac was very puzzled and asked, "I say, why didn't Miss Su take this opportunity to give Chengfeng a big shot?" Her live broadcast today was watched by tens of millions of people on multiple platforms, giving her the best chance to make a full blow. After today, there will be no such shop in this village. Charlie smiled slightly. Don't be too surprised, she must have her consideration. At this time, Zhiyu had finished the live broadcast, sitting motionless in the study alone, thinking about the next plan in her mind. Leona knocked on the door and said, "Zhiyu, come out for dinner." She recovered and hurriedly said, "Okay Mom, I'm coming." With that, she took out a large stack of legal documents from the drawer of the desk and stepped out. In her family, except for her brother Zhufei who had received information from Chengfeng in advance, no one else knew what deal she had reached with Chengfeng. Right now, her family members are all surprised, wondering why she would let Chengfeng off in the live broadcast just now. Even her mother Leona didn't understand. Zhiyu saw the family on the table, and they all looked a little strange, so she put the pile of legal documents on the table and said seriously, "Mom, brother, grandpa, eldest uncle, second uncle, there is something I didn't tell you before." Everyone is looking at her at this moment, waiting for her to follow. Zhiyu pointed to the legal documents and said, "Today, during the day, I reached an agreement with my grandfather. I did not attack him at this press conference. I also gave up the right to take all this to law. In exchange, he transferred all the shares of the Su family's ocean shipping group to me. The relevant procedures have been completed, and the industrial and commercial changes have also been completed." Everyone present was dumbfounded when they heard this. Except for Zhufei who knew everything in advance, everyone else was incredulous. No one thought that she would be able to bring the entire ocean shipping group from Chengfeng at such a small price. If this is Chengfeng's compensation to her, then this compensation is indeed a bit too big. Leona was the first to recover. She thought of Charlie's demand to her daughter. Let her become the head of the Su family within 3 years. Could this be the first step for her daughter to achieve her goal? She cannot stop herself from thinking that her first step is indeed a bit amazing. After listening to this, grandfather Elijah couldn't help asking, "Zhiyu, what are you going to do?" Zhiyu knew that her true purpose could not be told to anyone except her mother, especially her brother Zhufei. So she said seriously, "I just want to fight for a little protection for myself." After that, she looked at Zhufei and said, "Thanks to my brother for reminding me, there is no private property. If I turn my face with the Su family, then I really have nothing. I can't wait until I get married. I don't have a dowry that you can get, right? This ocean shipping group is taking it as compensation from the Su family and a dowry for me in the future." Zhufei felt so uncomfortable when he heard this. "I did say something similar to you, but that is to persuade you not to fight against the Su family and not against Grandpa. But I didn't let you take a knife and run to him to cut a big piece of meat." Although Zhufei was so complaining in his heart, he was still somewhat worried. He was afraid that Zhiyu's words would pass into his grandfather's ears. If he made his grandfather think that all this was his idea for Zhiyu, wouldn't he offend Grandpa again? Although he is the eldest grandson of Su's family, if he really offends Chengfeng, Chengfeng can also make him lose everything immediately. After all, he is different from Zhiyu. Zhiyu is now worth hundreds of billions. If all this is made public, she might already be the richest woman in China. Thinking of this, Zhufei felt even more uncomfortable. However, the Du family, including Elijah, did not doubt what Zhiyu said. Elijah even clapped his hands in applause and praised, "Zhiyu, you did a beautiful job. You can't make it better. Chengfeng, he must pay a sufficient price. The previous exposure of the video by the mysterious man has already ruined him. It doesn't make much sense to fall into the hole, so it's better to force him to cut off a piece of meat." Parental, Zhiyu's uncle, said with some worry, "The Su family's ocean shipping group has now been forced to terminate all business. It is said that the daily loss is a huge sum of money. It's hard to turn it back into profit." Zhiyu deliberately looked at her brother on the side, and then said in a slightly light tone, "It doesn't matter if I can't find a way to turn it back into profit. I will simply sell all its assets for cash. If the ship is not allowed to run, it must be sold, right? All will be sold at a discount, and at least 1 or 200 billion will be exchanged." Parental was stunned, then gave a thumbs up, and said in admiration, "Wonderful. I did not expect that even if this business can't be done, the assets can still be sold. It just so happens that I also have some network resources. If you decide to sell it at any time, say hello to your uncle, and I will help you match the line for a good price." When Zhufei heard this, his heart was bleeding like a maimed wolf. Classical mansion diamond box. Charlie and everyone exchanged cups and a dozen bottles of Maotai. The guests and the host enjoyed themselves. Charlie asked Issac to arrange several cars in advance and send them to the He family, as well as Pollard and Melba. Out of the box, Charlie arranged, "Master He, you and the other brothers can go directly back to the villa. Let Ms. He follow me in a car. I will send Professor Watt and the others back first, and then Ms. He can go to the hotel." Luther hugged Charlie and said, "Then I will follow Master Wade's arrangement." Everyone moved to the door, and Orville and Issac worked together to let the 10 people of the He family ride in 3 cars. After the 3 cars left, Issac arranged for his subordinates to drive a Lexus 6-seater business to the front, and said to Charlie, "Master Wade, you and Ms. He, Professor Watt, and Ms. Melba will take this business car. I take the company driver's seat." Charlie nodded and was about to get in the car, when suddenly he heard someone shout in surprise, "Charlie." He turned his head and saw that the one who walked out of Classical Mansion at this time was actually the first love of his father-in-law, Meiqing. Today, Meiqing and a few colleagues from the University of Senior Citizens were also having dinner in Classical Mansion. As soon as she came out and was about to take a taxi to leave, she saw him standing in front of a commercial vehicle, so she came over to say hello. He didn't expect to meet her here, so he smiled and said, "Auntie, are you eating here too?" "Yes," Meiqing said with a smile, "I just happened to have a meal with the old guys from the senior college." At this moment, Pollard, whose back was facing Meiqing, had already recovered. Seeing Meiqing dressed in glamorous and moving clothes, he was pleasantly surprised and said, "Meiqing, you are here too." Meiqing also smiled in surprise. "Oh, Mr. Watt, why are you here?" After finishing speaking, she pointed to Charlie and exclaimed, do you know Charlie?" At this time, Charlie hurriedly took the lead and said with a smile, "Auntie, a friend of mine just planned to do some new business, so he invited Professor Watt over for dinner. I didn't expect to run into him here." Pollard knew that Charlie didn't want too many people to know his true identity information, so he agreed, "Yes, Meiqing, I was surprised when I saw Charlie just now. This is a coincidence." Meiqing didn't doubt what Watt said, and she nodded and smiled lightly, "It's a coincidence. I also said that I would call you back and talk about college training for senior citizens. I don't know if you're busy with your recent school tasks." Pollard hurriedly said, "No matter how busy I am, I can spare time to help our senior college students improve their studies." Melba on the side was surprised when she saw her father's diligent and excited look. She originally thought that her father was the kind of person who had no interest in life, and she was afraid that he would never find another half. However, when she saw her father staring at the ant in front of her, she suddenly realized that it turned out that father also had the day when the old tree bloomed. So, she couldn't help but look at Meiqing a few more times, and she couldn't help sighing, "This ant has excellent looks and temperament. It is the first time I have seen this woman in middle-aged and among the elderly people. Dad's vision is really good." Meiqing also noticed that there was a young and beautiful girl who had been looking at her, so she couldn't help but look at her too. Seeing that the girl's eyebrows were actually like Pollard, she couldn't help asking, "Oh, Mr. Watt, isn't this your daughter?" Pollard just remembered that he didn't even introduce his precious girl to Meiqing. So he hurriedly said to her, "Meiqing, let me introduce her to you. This is my rebellious little girl, Melba." "Oh." Meiqing couldn't help exclaiming, "It's really your girl. She looks so beautiful." Melba smiled and said, "Auntie, you have won the prize." At this time, Pollard said to Melba, "Melba, this is Aunt Meiqing. She has just returned from the United States and has been living in the United States before." "Really?" Melba's eyes lit up when she heard this. She didn't think there was anything great about returning from the United States, but felt that the experience of this aunt and her father were so similar that the two must have a lot of common language. Meiqing nodded at this time and said, "I went to the United States after graduating from college. Some time ago after my husband passed away, I returned to this city with my son to settle down." Melba heard this and couldn't help sighing, "Oh, Auntie, you are in basically the same situation as my dad, and even the time of going abroad and returning home is similar. I believe you and my dad must have a lot of common things, right?" When Meiqing heard Melba's remarks, she nodded in agreement, and smiled. It's really hard to meet people with similar life experiences. Of course, there will be more common things. Meiqing spoke this sentence from the bottom of her heart. In her life, she has not many experiences, but it has also gone through ups and downs. Going abroad, emigrating, getting married, having a child, be widowed, and then choose to return to the roots with the child and return to the country. This short sentence represents her life experience of more than 50 years. What's interesting is that Pollard's experience is almost exactly the same as hers. He also decided to return to China after his wife died. Originally, Meiqing thought that the difference between him and herself was that he had returned by himself and the child was still abroad. Today, when she suddenly saw Melba, she realized that Pollard's child had also returned. To be honest, it was so coincidental that Meiqing thought she was looking in the mirror, but in some places, it was the opposite. For example, Pollard was a male and had a daughter, and she was a female and had a son. Therefore, when she saw Melba, she was a little more cordial, so she smiled and said, "Melba, my son just came to China with me. I have the opportunity to introduce you to him. I believe you and him will have a lot of common things to talk about." Melba smiled slightly, nodded, and said politely, "Sure, Auntie." Seeing this, Pollard hurriedly said, "Oh, Meiqing, how about that? I will cook some dishes at home tomorrow night. You will bring Paul to come to recognize the door, and let the two children get to know each other. What do you think?" Meiqing thought for a while and said, "Well, I'm not sure yet. I will ask Paul when I get home." Pollard hurriedly said, "Okay. If Paul has time, just tell me directly, and I will start preparing." Meiqing nodded, looked at the time, and said, "Okay, I won't talk to you, for now, some old guys over there are still waiting." After finishing speaking, she waved her hand to Charlie and said, "Charlie, if you have time to sit at home, Paul keeps talking about you, saying that the person he admires most is you." Charlie smiled and said politely, "Sure, Auntie, I must come if I have time." Meiqing smiled slightly, and said to Melba, "Melba, Auntie is leaving first, and I will take my son to visit your house when it is suitable." Melba said with a sweet smile, "Sure, Auntie, go slowly." When Meiqing left, Charlie didn't delay anymore, and said to Pollard and Melba, "Let's get in the car too." "Okay," Pollard responded, and then got into the commercial vehicle. After everyone got in the car, Charlie asked the driver to go to the villa area where Pollard lived. On the way, Melba couldn't help but ask Pollard with a look of gossip, "Dad, are you interested in that auntie?" Pollard became embarrassed all of a sudden, and said falteringly, "You kid, what are you talking about?" Melba curled her lips, "I'm really a 3-year-old kid. It's just such a thing, can I still not see it?" As she said, she continued with a serious face, "I have a good impression of this auntie. I have never seen an aunt with such a temperament and cultivation like hers, and more importantly, she is very friendly." "Really?" Pollard was pleasantly surprised when he heard this, and blurted out, "Do you really think she is good?" "Of course it is true," Melba said earnestly. "I am not an old feudal system follower, you are also old, you must have a companion in the future. If you can really catch Auntie, I will agree with 100 people, don't worry. Go after it, if you need my help, just speak up. In fact, Melba was somewhat resistant to her father's renewal. She always angered her father because of her mother's death, thinking that he was responsible for her mother's death. However, because of her experience in Syria this time, she has a lot more tolerance and understanding of her father. He has been running around for so many years to give his family a better economic foundation and living environment. Even with an annual salary of tens of millions of US dollars, he has never had an affair derailed. Overall, he is very family friendly. Sometimes, it is difficult to take care of both career and family. Most fathers spend most of their time working outside, and it is indeed not easy. Moreover, now that her father is single and older, he not only lacks the warmth of his partner in life, but also lacks the care of his partner. People say that a wife is an essential companion, and when people are old without a companion, there are indeed great shortcomings in the later days. As a daughter, she naturally does not want her father to be alone. Even if she returns to him as a daughter, the lack of a partner will still make his life incomplete. Pollard was really touched and gratified in his heart when he heard what his daughter said. But with so many people around him, he had to say vaguely, "If you have this heart, Dad will be very satisfied. As for my affairs with this auntie of yours, let it go." Melba blurted out, "Then how do you go with the flow?" "Let's go with the flow. Such an excellent aunt, you still go with the flow. For this auntie, I don't know how many suitors are behind. You must work hard to succeed." Pollard said embarrassingly, This, we talk at home, and talk at home only." Charlie listened on the sidelines, feeling a little bit in his heart. Looking at it this way, what is the chance of success for his father-in-law? Uncle has been crushed on all sides so that there are no root hairs left. The only advantage may be the first love with auntie. However, father-in-law was as timid as a mouse. He didn't dare to pursue auntie with integrity, and he didn't dare to divorce his wife directly. Later, even when he met with her, he was afraid of wolves and tigers. I have to say that he did. He is timid and fearful, and he hasn't had enough responsibility yet. During the time when auntie returned to China, she wanted to be disappointed in him too, right? Thinking of this, Charlie couldn't help but look at Pollard beside him. I have to say that uncle is indeed a rare good man. I won't say it with high education, high self-cultivation, and high income. The key is that he is more energetic than his father-in-law. And uncle is also widowed, so he can be upright at any time. He's with auntie, and he can even register for marriage directly. These are far beyond comparison with the old man. For Charlie, let him stand in an absolutely objective position, and he is also more optimistic about Meiqing and Pollard. Two high-level intellectuals who have broken away from the low-level tastes, coming together can be said to be a perfect match. As for his father-in-law, to be honest, Charlie felt that he was not worthy of Meiqing at all. Perhaps, when the two were in their first love, they stood at the same starting point. However, over the past 2 to 3 decades, Meiqing has been going up, but he has been going down. Up to now, the two of them have been separated by 1,000 miles. In this case, even if they are really together, I am afraid it will not last long. After Charlie sent the Watt family father and daughter home, he let the commercial vehicle go to Shangri-La. Ruoli has been waiting here for her mother, and was impatient after waiting all night. When the car arrived at the entrance of the hotel, Charlie said to Issac, "Mr. Issac, you can send Ms. He up, I won't come." Roma asked hurriedly, "Master won't come up and sit down for a while?" Charlie smiled and said, "Some other time, it's late, I will go home directly." Roma nodded, and said, "Well, Master made a special trip to drop me here. If you have anything in the future, please call me directly." Charlie said, "Okay, please call me if you have something to do. We have said that we have 100 million yuan in funds each year. Ms. He will give me an account back and I will transfer the money. As for the remaining medicine, you will have it a few days later. It will be given to you." Roma hurriedly said, no hurry, Master, it is good that it is a year's remuneration, but we have just come here, you don't need to fulfill all the promises for the year so soon." "It's okay." Charlie smiled slightly and said, "Ms. He hurry up, I guess Ruoli is very anxiously waiting for you." Roma nodded slightly and said, "Master, then I will go up first." At this time, Issac also helped Roma open the electric door in the back row. She stepped out of the car and entered the hotel with Issac. Charlie was about to order the driver to drive to Thompson's. Suddenly, through the car window, he saw an old and a young walking out of the hotel. He was surprised to find that these grandfather and grandchild were the two people he had met before at Aurous Hill University of Finance and Economics. At that time, he guessed that the two of them should be Feng Shui masters, and most likely they came for him, but the two seemed to have no malice, so he didn't start with them in advance. But unexpectedly, the two of them lived in Shangri-La. Charlie told the driver to drive while calling Issac. He said, "Mr. Issac, two men came out of your hotel just now, one old and one young. The old one is estimated to be nearly 100 years old, and the young one is following. In his 20s, you can help me see if they live in Shangri-La. If so, check their check-in information, and then give me feedback." Issac immediately said, "Okay, master, I will make arrangements." When Charlie got off the car in front of the gate of Thompson's villa, Issac sent him a voice message on WeChat. "Master, I just checked. The old and the young do indeed live in Shangri-La. The older one is named Dan Mai and the young one is Mike. Both of them checked in with American passports. From the United States." Charlie frowned and replied, "It just so happened that the He family came. Tell them, and send two dexterous eyes to watch them, and report to me as soon as possible." Quote, "Okay, master." Charlie didn't know the origin of this man from the United States, but he felt that this person seemed to belong to the Feng Shui mystery school, so he thought of the Feng Shui master he knew on Waderest Mountain, Qinghua Lai. However, when the two met at first, although it was as good as they were before, it was also a gentle friendship, and no one left the other's contact information. So Charlie called his grandfather. In the beginning, Qinghua was invited by him to reselect the ancestral grave for the Wade family. If he wants to come, he must rely on Qinghua's contact information. At this moment, when Zhongquan received Charlie's call, he couldn't help but feel a little surprised. He smiled and said, "Charlie, why do you think of calling this old bone?" Charlie didn't hide it, and said directly, "I heard that you know an American Feng Shui master. I have something to ask. I wonder if you can give me his phone number." Zhongquan said in surprise, "Oh. Where did you hear about it?" Charlie smiled. "Rumors outside." Zhongquan laughed and said, "Yes, Mr. Qinghua, an old overseas Chinese in the United States, but he is getting older. When he left this city earlier, he told me that he would close the mountain. If you want to invite him out of the mountain, I'm afraid he won't be pleased." Charlie said calmly, "I just want to ask a few questions on the phone."